My name is Joshua Wolk, and I'm a Feldenkrais practitioner. I've been asked to come today to talk about the work of Moshe Feldenkrais, who was a prominent, well-known Israeli scientist. First of all, I just want to thank the consulate for the invitation. I think it's wonderful that the consulate is recognizing Feldenkrais and Feldenkrais work. It's getting to be a much more well-known method. Moshe Feldenkrais was really an incredible person, you know, a nuclear physicist and speaker of 8 languages. He was a well-known martial arts and self-defense instructor, and just a real polymath. And his work is not as well known in the United States as I think it is in Israel. This was promised to be an interactive presentation, and I think it would be fun to start the interactiveness now just by a show of hands of people who have heard of the Feldenkrais method. I think this is probably an unusual group in that many people will have already heard of the Feldenkrais method because of the connection with Israel. So the Feldenkrais method is it was developed in order to help people to understand how the brain communicates with the body, right? And it's a complicated complicated thing in a certain way to understand. But if we could have the first slide, I'll give you a little bit of information, So here we have Dr. Moshe Feldenkrais. His method will be of great benefit to all of humanity. From my own experience, I know the remarkable results achieved. And this is from David Ben-Gurion, the first Prime Minister of Israel. The Feldenkrais method is the most sophisticated and effective method I have seen for the prevention and reversal of deterioration of function. Margaret Mead, PhD. So here's a picture of Feldenkrais. This was taken in about the 40s. And there will be a slideshow of pictures of him as we go along. So is there anyone, I would like to see another show of hands of people who feel like they actually know what the Feldenkrais method is. Many people have heard of it, and then they say, well, okay, very few hands go up. So the Feldenkrais method is a way of exploring how the central nervous system organizes sensory information and then controls action. And it's a way of using that information, using the knowledge gained from that exploration in order to help people to improve the way that they function in various ways. So as a Feldenkrais practitioner, I work at the Feldenkrais Institute of New York, and I see clients every day. Many people come in for all kinds of different reasons. I work with actors and dancers and athletes and people who are interested in improving their performance. But I also work with people who are in pain, people who are trying to rehabilitate injury. And I also work with a variety of people who are just interested in the method as a sort of a mode of self-exploration. So some people do yoga, or some people do meditation, and some do the Feldenkrais method. And in fact, I think this is one of the most interesting things about the method. In order to give you a sense of how it works, I want to tell you a little bit of a story. Recently someone called the Institute to say that her husband had suffered from a very severe stroke and was basically completely paralyzed, and asked, you know, could the method be helpful in any way for him? And this was a challenge. I was quite daunted when I got the tap to come and see if I could help this man. His name is Jeremy, and I've now been seeing him for 2 months. And when we first met, Jeremy was in a condition where his entire body his musculature was entirely spastic. His arms were held close to his chest, his legs were totally spastic, and he was in absolute agony. Everything was painful. There was nothing he could do. He couldn't be touched without feeling it as absolute agony. Well, knowing some things about the way the brain works and having learned Moshe Feldenkrais' method, I had a trick up my sleeve when I first went to see him. I thought, you know, if he could see touch. Now, first of all, I have to be able to touch someone to be able to work with them one-on-one this way, to be able to try to help them to move more efficiently. But if he feels touch as painful, I won't be able to help him. So my first hurdle was trying to get him to feel touch as just gentle touch. But every time anyone touched him, he would say, and he was unable to make any intonation, but he would say, ouch. He would say, ouch. He would say, ouch. Every time you touch him, ouch, ouch. He couldn't put any emotion into his voice, but he would just say, ouch. And then if you kept touching him, he might say, what do I have to do to get you to stop torturing me? So this was daunting. So the first thing I did is I thought, okay, he needs to be able to see that when I touch him, I'm just touching him gently. He needs to get visual information that tells him that his tactile information is wrong. He felt that I was scratching him with sharp fingernails, but I was just touching him softly. So I thought, okay, I'll orient him so he can see. Then I'll touch him, and he will learn to appreciate my touch as gentle. But this was a total failure because Jeremy's neck was spastic and he could only look up, and the stroke had destroyed his visual field from below the horizon. Completely unable, he hadn't seen any part of his own body in 14 months. And he'd been a prisoner in this contracted body for 14 months in total agony. So after the first session, I felt like a failure. And I came to him in the second session, I said, Jeremy, it's nice to see you. And he said, it's horrible to see you. So I knew I had my work cut out for me. So here's what I did. Using a Feldenkrais thinking, a sort of Feldenkrais approach to things, I held my hands up, and I put my hands in his visual field, and I let him see that my hands were soft. And in fact, I made a little pulsing motion with my hands. And then I slowly lowered my hands down and touched his hand, just for a moment, and then I raised them back up. And then I touched his hand again, and then I raised them back up. And I made a rhythm so that it could be predictable. And lo and behold, no ouch. After 14 months of not being able to be touched without an ouch, no ouch. So I touched his elbow, and I showed him my hands. They're soft, they're gentle. I touched his shoulder. I showed him my hands. I touched his hip. I showed him my hands. They're soft. And over a period of an hour, there was not a single ouch. And by the time I had worked with him in this way for a couple more sessions, I could do anything with him. I could move his body in all different ways. And by the time I had seen him 8 or 9 times, and I had done a lot of things that are more sort of traditional, basic Feldenkrais work, the spasticity was reduced. And he was comfortable. I walked into his room, and there was this comfortable man lying in a bed, rather than a man who was sweating with the pain. He was just resting there comfortably. And I felt, what a great victory. Now, I wish I could say that this story ends with Jeremy dancing a jig, but it ends with his wife and his children living in a house with a man who's lying comfortably in bed and who can communicate with them, and who can have a relationship that has something other than, please help my pain. So I think this is a great victory, and I'll continue to work with him, and we'll see where it goes. But let's do a little bit here. This is supposed to be an interactive thing, so let's do a little bit of Feldenkrais work right now. So sit in your seat. If your legs are crossed, maybe uncross them. And take a moment to just feel yourself sitting there, and I'll guide you through a few movements. We'll just take a few minutes. I'll guide you through a few movements, and you'll see, you'll have a taste. Usually a Feldenkrais lesson lasts about 45 minutes, but we have maybe 4. So let's see what we can do. So to begin with, just very gently, turn your head to the left and right, and just observe the feeling of the ease of the movement in your neck, turning left and right. Okay, good. Now, take your right hand and imagine, make your hand like my hand was when I was working with Jeremy. Pulse it very gently. Feel that you open and close your right hand. Feel that you open and close your hand very, very gently. That's it. And then close it as if you were holding, say, an ice cream cone in your hand, and you want to be delicate with it. And then take that right hand and place it on your chin. And with your hand touching your chin, move your arm and your shoulders and your head to the right a little bit, and back to the middle. And to the right a little bit, and back to the middle. Just repeat it a few times. That's it. Now do a funny thing. As you turn your head to the right, keep your eyes focused forward. Maybe you keep your eyes on me, or you keep your eyes focused on something directly in front of you. But keep your eyes forward as you turn your head to the right. That's it. Okay. And pause a moment, take your hand down. Now do another funny thing. Put your hand back in that same position, a very gentle hand. And then touch your chin, hold your chin with your hand, and turn your head to the right. And now open your mouth, but you'll do it in a funny way because now your hand is in the way of your jaw moving. So your head will tilt backwards rather than when you open your mouth, it'll push your head backwards. So your head is to the right, you open and close your mouth. Do it several times, 5 or 6 times. That's it. Softly, very gently. And then let your head come back to the middle and bring your arm down. And now do a funny thing, which is just to go back to the beginning, and turn your head to the left and to the right. And now observe if you feel that your head turns a little bit differently to one side than it did at the start. How many people notice a difference just in those 4 minutes? Yes, so several hands are going up. Now you can imagine after 45 minutes, this would be a more significant kind of a movement lesson. But that's the sort of thing that you can expect in Feldenkrais work. So thank you for the opportunity to come and speak to you today. I think the Feldenkrais method is one of the most incredible innovations in the world, and for it to have come from Israel and with Moshe Feldenkrais, I think Israel has a lot to be proud of in Moshe Feldenkrais, who unfortunately is no longer with us, but his method lives on. 50 years ago, there was one Feldenkrais practitioner in the whole world, and that was Moshe Feldenkrais. Now there are thousands all over the world, and I'm incredibly proud to be one of those Feldenkrais practitioners who can help people in dire circumstances and just help athletes improve their performance and things like that. And in fact, the most gratifying thing I've experienced in a long time is the last time I went to see Jeremy. And I said, Jeremy, I walked in the room, he was resting, and I said, Jeremy, it's nice to see you. And he said, Joshua, it's wonderful to see you. So, it's been wonderful talking to you. Thank you for the opportunity.